Hello, welcome to the Lisa Horton Crafts channel. My name's Wendy and today I'm going to show you how I've made this card using the new Euphoria watercolours and the 3D embossing folder. It's the pine cone one that I'm using today from Lisa Horton Crafts. I've started off by creating myself a white DL card blank, just a standard DL size. And I've also cut a panel of chocolate brown card that's in the Lisa Horton Crafts Neutrals card pack, just a few millimetres shy of the DL card size. I've then cut a panel of Nina Desert Storm craft card, again slightly smaller than the chocolate brown panel, and this is what I will do my embossing and painting on. I've got a strip of it's a 1 inch wide strip of vellum and a sentiment that I've created using the Banner Sentiment stamp and die set that I've embossed on craft card. I've also got 2 extra layers that I will layer up later on. So to start off, I'm going to use a brayer to apply paint to the embossing folder. For this technique, I want the gold paint to be in the background of the design. So the first thing I need to do is work out which side of the embossing folder to apply paint to. This is what you can see me doing here. I need the paint to be on the raised up side where the background feels raised up. I'm going to be using an inexpensive gold metallic paint for this technique. I think it works really well and you get a really good effect on the craft card with this paint. I'm just going to use a very small amount. I'm going to apply this to my glass mat at the side. I'll then use my brayer to smooth out the paint. It's better to build up the layers on the folder rather than applying too much at once. But don't worry if you get too much paint on in the pine cones themselves, it all adds to the effect of the design. I'm just smoothing out the paint here on my desk and then I'm going to apply it to the folder. And it's really good because you can see the gold paint on the background areas. I'll carefully apply this till I get a really good coverage that I'm happy with. Once I'm happy with the amount of paint, I'm then going to take my piece of craft card and put it into the folder. I find it easier to put the craft card onto the side of the folder with no paint on and then close the folder down. You end up with a better coverage and the card doesn't slip in the paint. I'll then take this to my die cutting machine and run it through off camera. So I'm just going to have a look now and see if I'm happy with the amount of paint. It looks really good, but I think it could take a little bit more, so I will repeat the process. I'll just add a little bit more paint to the same side of the folder, just putting it on my glass mat here, using my brayer to smooth it out in exactly the same way. Try not to add too much paint, and I'm just smoothing it out over the design. I will close it down again in the same way and pop it through my die cutting machine as before. It's really easy to build up the layers like this if you're careful, and the piece of card won't slip out of your folder. I've run it through now and I'm really happy with the overall effect. So what I'm going to do now is take it out carefully, put it to one side and leave it to dry while I tidy up. So I've put the background panel to one side and I've allowed it to dry. I'm just checking just to make sure before I begin watercolouring. I'm going to be using the Euphoria watercolour set from Lisa Horton Crafts for this technique. I'm also going to use the water brush that comes within the set. I'm going to start by showing you how I paint one of the pine cones with the water brush, and I'll show you the pine needles as well. I take some of the paint, and this is using a wet to dry technique, so the card itself is dry, the paintbrush has a small amount of water on it. I'm just applying paint to the recesses of the pine cone segments, And then what I do is use the water brush to drag the paint out to the outer edges. If I get too much water or too much paint, I just wipe it off on the piece of kitchen roll that I keep to the side. And this is basically the same technique. I use a very small amount of water, apply the paint to the darkest areas of the segments and pull it out to the edges. And it's as simple as that. I try not to do too many segments of the pine cone at once, and this means that you won't get the lines where the paint hasn't blended out. It's supposed to be a fun process, so just enjoy it, enjoy colouring. It's very therapeutic and I find it really relaxing. What I'm going to do though is speed up this part of the video, so you'll still see the technique, but it's the same for the whole design. I finished painting all the pine cones and I've done the pine needles and I'm really happy with the way it looks. So I'm now going to add some detail. So you can use a white jelly roll pen, or what I'm going to use for this technique is the white paint from the Euphoria set. Again, in exactly the same manner, I just take a very small amount of paint, but this time I'm just going to put it on the very outer edges of the pine cone segments. Again, I'm going to speed this up because it's the same technique for the whole design. I finished adding all of the white highlights to the edges of the pine cones and I'm really pleased with how this looks. The next part is to assemble the card. I'm first going to adhere my panel of chocolate brown card that I already cut before. I'm just using some wet glue to adhere that to the white card blank. I like to use a liquid glue because it gives you a little bit of manoeuvrability, a bit of wiggle time, make sure you can get it all lined up. Then I'm going to take my embossed panel and I'm going to wrap the piece of a 1-inch vellum around the outside edges and firm it down. What I'll do then is turn it over and I'm just going to use some double-sided sticky tape, just some small pieces, just to fasten the vellum on the back to the panel. This way it hides any glue and you don't actually notice anything, so it's wrapped around the embossed panel. I'm going to put the embossed sentiment, but first I'm going to double that up. I cut 2 layers of craft card previously, just adhering them together again with some wet glue, and this adds some dimension to the sentiment. Once that's dry, I will add that onto my vellum panel. To give some dimension to the card, I'm just going to take a piece of cardboard. I like to use recycled cardboard. It's free and I like to recycle things. Also, it doesn't weigh very much, so if you're worried about postage costs, it's a great thing to use. I'm just sticking it down to the back of my panel, applying a little bit more glue, and then I'll adhere that to the chocolate brown piece on the card. Making sure that I've got it the right way up, and I'm just sticking it down. Push it down, don't push it too firm because you don't want to ruin the embossing. Once that's done, I'm then going to apply some more glue to the back of my greeting and fasten that onto the vellum piece. I'll use my T-square at this point because it's quite a simple card. I want to make sure that that sentiment is perfect. Just using that to line it up. Because it's wet glue, you can wiggle it around. And that's my finished card. Thank you for watching today. Please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos from Lisa Horton Crafts. Goodbye!